Welcome to the Leaders in Payments podcast, where we talk to C-level leaders from across the payments landscape. We'll be discussing the products and services that impact the payment space today, as well as trends and predictions for the future of payments. We will also hear stories from our guests about their journeys to the top.
I partnered with U.S. Bank as far as how we really pivoted, and one of the things you hear us talk a lot about, just that focus on integrated payments and omni-commerce was a main part of what we knew we needed to make that shift. And we really made that shift when I took over as CEO. So we've had a lot of focus on that. We've seen a lot of growth in our business of that. It represents 30% of our total revenue now. So that's been a big achievement, I'd say, in my tenure here as CEO, is just really making that shift and focusing our business on integrated payments, which includes the Talc acquisition and really growing those businesses.
That was Elavon's CEO, Jamie Walker, and he is my special guest this week on episode 218. And I'm your host, Greg Myers. Jamie has a passion for people, payments, and Orange Theory. Yep, you heard me right. He's an Orange Theory enthusiast. So stay tuned to learn more about that. Elavon is a payment processor and wholly owned subsidiary of U.S. Bank. They offer payment processing to a wide array of customers, from the smallest of businesses to the largest airlines and everything in between, and all on a global scale. As for their competitive advantage, Jamie touts their breadth of distribution, their industry-specific solutions, and the digital assets provided by their U.S. Bank relationship. Jamie and I go on to talk about his journey to the role of CEO, including his 22-year tenure with U.S. Bank, the catalyst that fueled his empathetic leadership style, and where he sees the industry going in the next 2 to 3 years as it relates to contactless, embedded payments, digital wallets, and a secure checkout experience. We've got a great episode ahead, so let's get started. Hi, Jamie. Thank you for being here, and welcome to the Leaders in Payments podcast.
Greg, it's great to be here today.
All right, well, let's just dive in. If you don't mind, tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and we'll go into your professional journey in a minute. But if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about where you grew up, where you went to school, where you currently live, a few things like that.
Currently, I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up in Philadelphia. I'm a diehard Philadelphia Eagles fan, so a little disappointed during this time of year. But all seriousness, so I ended up in Atlanta. I went to Emory University many years ago, and I never left Atlanta. So that's how I ended up down here. I do love golf. I'm an Orange Theory nut. One fact about me is I've done close to 1,200 classes of Orange Theory since 2013. So that's one of my passions as far as things I like to do outside of work. I have 2 boys. One's in college, one's in high school. Married to an entrepreneur who owns 2 small businesses. So I learned a lot about small businesses through her. So I think that's an interesting fact about me.
Yeah, that's exciting. Thanks for sharing that. Well, let's discuss Elavon. So tell the audience what Elavon does.
So Elavon is what I would call a payment processor. We're a wholly owned subsidiary of U.S. Bank. We've been part of U.S. Bank for over 20 years. And we offer payment processing to a wide array of types of customers to accept payment. So anywhere from the smallest business to the largest airlines in the world, we provide payment processing to them to accept various types of payments, including your traditional Visa, MasterCard type payments, Amex, et cetera.
Okay. And you mentioned airlines. Are there specific verticals that you focus on?
Yeah, I think we do specialize in certain verticals, specifically airlines, hospitality, healthcare, certain retail segments. We have a lot of strength in. Recently we've gotten more into mass transit. So those are B areas we definitely specialize as far as where we see strengths and what we can bring to the market.
And then are there countries or regions of the world that you're in?
North America is predominantly where we're located, but we also are in Europe as well. Specific countries in Europe are the UK, Ireland, Poland, and the Nordics are where areas of concentration we have that we offer services to.
Can you talk a little bit about your go-to-market strategy? You have a direct sales force, partnership channels, all of the above?
Yeah, we really do. And I think one thing that differentiates is we have a distribution breadth, a range of channels and partners to distribute services. So you think about, we have traditional FI partners that we go to market to. We just announced a new partnership with CIBC, the 5th largest bank in Canada. We're part of U.S. Bank. So U.S. Bank's a large distribution partner of ours. And then we've talked a lot about we talk about tech-led We have a lot of integrated partners. So we've really grown that space and tried to add new partners from a software distribution perspective. We also have, we talked a little bit about is US Bank and our Talic product. So Talic is a main way we go to market now, especially for our small businesses. We really have grown that with our own software going direct to market.
Okay. Can you tell us a little more about what Talic does?
Sure. Talic is a software solution that really allows small businesses to run their business, specifically, I'd say in the restaurant space, smaller restaurants, smaller retail stores that run their business. So not only process payments, but provide scheduling, provide inventory capability. So really a way for a small business to run their business. And it's also, especially for US Bank customers, is allowing us to integrate with other banking products into that service to allow those customers to easily manage their business and run their business.
Yeah. And can you talk a little more about sort of that, I'm using air quotes, embedded finance? It seems to be, it started with embedded payments. It may have been called software-led payments. There's been a lot of different names for it over the years. But to me, the future is embedded finance, right? Taking other financial service products like lending and even checking accounts and integrating them into software. Where do you guys play in that space?
Yeah, look, I think one of the unique aspects of us as being part of US Bank, our ability to embed those sort of products and really extend those, bringing payments and banking together, I think is the future. And our ability to do that, especially with our parent company, I think gives us a real advantage to embed those products more holistically. You think about some of the transactions we've done with Bento, with Travel Bank, to not only focus on the receivable side, but also focus on the payable side to really support all the money movement needs for those customers.
Well, what would you say differentiates Elavon from all the competitors out there?
I think there's a couple things that differentiate. One is I talked about it, is we have a breadth of distribution that we service today. So we obviously have our own bank channel with US Bank, but also with all the partners and what we've developed over time. That's one unique thing. We have industry-specific solutions that we like to talk about. So we have specific solutions where it's healthcare, airlines, hospitality, that really uniquely service those industries that give us an advantage. And then, US Bank itself is an advantage to us, just both from the safety and soundness of being part of US Bank, gives us, I think, a unique advantage in the industry, but also being able to attach to those digital assets that the bank can bring, especially those financial service products we talked about, really can complement the payment solutions that we offer.
And you talked about vertical solutions. So are those things that you have bought other capabilities and brought them in-house, or things you've built from the ground up?
It's a combination of both. So we've been, over the years, we've been aggressive in buying certain gateways for specific industries like Sempos, as an example, or even SagePay in Europe to really give us some more depth. But then we have a Fusebox solution that's a homegrown solution that really services our hospitality segment. So we really have a mixture of a buy, build, partner strategy in those specific industries that we bring to the market.
And where do you see the payments industry heading, say, in the next 2 to 3 years?
But look, I think, and you saw, we did some research ourselves. We rolled that out. I think it's going to be a lot more contactless. You're going to see a lot more demand for contactless. That embedded payment is going to be critical. We did see digital payments just becoming much more prolific. Digital wallets, as an example, we surveyed 60% of customers in the kind of banking finance, and just the key of that is really allowing payments to be secure and making sure that there's just not a lot of concern. I mean, there is a lot of concern around cybercrime and just making sure that you have secure payments. So I see a lot more focus on that and just ensuring that payments are secure and just more contactless and things like that from that perspective. As we talked about industry segments and where those going, in the retail and healthcare government segments, we really believe that in the future, just creating that embedded, that very strong, good checkout experience is going to be critical to how we succeed in the future and where that needs to go. And that's going to look, you think about payments anywhere or embedding those payments, that's just going to be even more true over the next 3 to 5 years as we look to make things more seamless for our customers and what our consumers expect out of us. I also expect, one other thing I try and I continue to expect is, the point of sale lending phenomena. Sometimes people call it buy now, pay. I do expect that to continue. I think that is what we have studied and seen as, having an offering in that space is going to be critical as far as, having that digital offering lending at the point of sale, especially for the millennial generation, is going to be critical over the next 3 to 5 years. It's going to continue to grow.
Do you foresee a lot of regulation in that area?
Look, I think the regulators, as they've put out there, are looking at it. It's tough to predict what regulation will come out and then what it will look like.
So over the last couple of years, asking this kind of question about the future, a lot of responses came back around crypto and blockchain. So just wanted to throw it out there. Do you see crypto and blockchain, once we're over this wave of maybe negativity or whatever you want to call it, do you foresee that playing big in the payment space? Maybe that's 7-10 years out there?
Look, I definitely think the technology that comes along with crypto will play a big role. I think the blockchain technology continues to play, we talk about real time and just different ways of securing payments. I definitely see that as a way. Crypto itself as a currency. Look, I think it has a future. I think as regulation plays a role and things like that. What does it look like? I think the jury's out. But I definitely think the underlying technology that most of crypto is embedded on, definitely has a future.
Any other trends further out in the 7 to 10 years?
No, look, I covered. I think the big thing is, again, I think the contactless, the move the cash. There's still a lot of cash to be moved over the next 7 to 10 years. So I think that will continue. But I think the main things, the trends we're going to see is again that digital wallet experience, that real time experience that consumers expect to have, going to continue over the next 5 to 10 years.
Agree with you. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about you. So tell us about your journey to your role there as the CEO of Elavon.
Yeah, so I've been with U.S. Bank for almost 22 years now. I started my career on the audit side with E&Y, and it's been I would say just kind of fortunate opportunities I've had in my career. So when I first decided to join Elavon, back then it was called Nova Information Systems. They were actually a standalone public company, and I always like to share a story. When I accepted the role, they were a standalone public company, and the person who hired me said, "Jamie, just to let you know, we're going to become part of U.S. Bank." And so really, I've spent my whole career, I almost didn't come. I decided to come over, and I immediately got an opportunity to help bring those two parts. They had an acquiring business at U.S. Bank. Elavon had an acquiring business. I had an opportunity to play a significant role in pulling those together. Then I got to spend 3 years in helping set up our international business. So that's really, really cut my teeth. I spent almost 3 years over internationally, a couple of years in Ireland, 1 year in England, just helping build out our international business. So that's where I cut my teeth. We did a bunch of M&A then, did some corporate development there where I got to play a lead roles in that. And then I transitioned back to the States and I got an opportunity to be the CFO of Elavon. And I did that role for 8 years. And what was interesting about that role is that I got that role in 2008. And as I'm sure, Greg, you remember what happened in 2008, that the financial crisis hit. So, I got a real opportunity to learn quickly how to deal with that crisis. We had a lot of partners that were going through stress at that point from the banking side, or FI partners. I learned a lot as we made it through that crisis. And that's where we really expanded. Really started to accelerate some of our M&A type work, grow into various countries in Europe and really expand on that. So I got a lot of experience, again, from a corporate development perspective, playing that CFO role. During that time, just from a leadership perspective, that's really where, I always tell the story when I first got my first role at Elavon, I was in charge of 10 people, and I think 8 of them left within 6 months. and I think I quickly learned that I had some work to do from an empathy and just how you interact with people. And that's been a growth that I've tried to learn over the years and then kind of share that story. It is something you have to focus on, how you work with people, how you build leadership teams. Kind of my things I always talk about from a leadership perspective is, things I like to share with my team is they need to be accountable, bring thought leadership, but bring some urgency as well. I think that's important to bring to any role, whether you're just starting out, or you're at an executive role. So that's kind of my story. Then when I got into the CEO role, I got a couple years with US Bank just running strategy for payments for almost 2 years. And then I got an opportunity to become the CEO of Elavon. And that was back in, I think it was 2017, where I've been in this role now for almost 6 years. And really, that's where I had an opportunity to really help drive the strategy even more, own the strategy. I partnered with US Bank as far as how we really pivoted. And one of the things you hear us talk a lot about, just that focus on integrated payments and omni-commerce was a main part of what we knew we needed to make that shift. And we really made that shift when I took over as a CEO. So we've had a lot of focus on that. We've seen a lot of growth in our business of that. It represents 30% of our total revenue now. So that's been a big achievement, I'd say, in my tenure here as CEO, is just really making that shift and focusing our business on integrated payments, which includes the Talc acquisition and really growing those businesses.
And has Elavon and US Bank, from a payments perspective, were they traditionally more on the small business side, or have they always been across all kind of small business, medium and large?
It's always been across the board. We've focused on all parts: small business, to service our customers, small business, mid-market, and enterprise customers.
And so you started, you said, on the auditing side. How did you get into payments? Was that a purposeful decision, or did you sort of just fall into payments? And like many of us, we fell into payments and haven't been able to get out.
So my very first audit was Nova Information Systems. It was kind of coincidence. I mean, I did have it in my background. My father ran the ATM business for another large bank for 35 years. I probably didn't fully understand what he did at the time, but when I just happened to be my very first audit client was Nova, had lots of opportunities to spend with them. They went through some large transactions, and I fell in love with the space, and I was hired by them.
You mentioned already some of the things that you're personally passionate about, but maybe talk about some of the things from a work perspective. So a business perspective, what are you passionate about there?
The biggest thing I'm passionate about is one, people. I know that's sort of a cliche thing to say, but I love it. I had an opportunity. I was in Europe for a week. I was in 3 different countries, getting to spend time with people, and I've learned to appreciate even more ever since COVID, especially, of spending time with the team and hearing from the team what they're passionate about. What do we need to focus on? I find as a leader, that's where you learn most of things that are going right, but things that aren't going right, the things we need to work on, that we need to focus on. What do we need to do better by our customers and things like that? So that, I get a lot of energy out of meeting with the team, whether it's in a business setting or a community setting. We do a lot of community work, especially here in Atlanta. That's what I enjoy the most in my job. I think, secondly, I love to execute. I've been passionate about the strategies we've implemented, and I'm all about just seeing that through, not only just developing a strategy, but how do we implement it? How do we go after it? How do we, get the funding for it? Those sort of things, I love to focus on, and it's things I'm passionate about.
Do you have a leadership style that you would describe yourself as?
I think I've learned to be a pretty empathetic leader, a servant leader, in the sense of, I really like to put my people first. And I know it's tough to say. Humble is the word I would use. The people around me are successful. I know I'll be successful. And how do I create those environments for them to be successful? So I really focus on that, creating a healthy environment for my leaders to make sure they're successful.
So this next question, I already mentioned it, but I started in payments almost 20 years ago with JP Morgan Chase and their payments division. And to me at the time, it was a job, and then, became a career. And then I became passionate about the industry. And over time, over all of those years, obviously our industry has changed a lot. It's become, more innovative, and there's a lot of money been invested in this industry. And I think, even kids in college today, they can take fintech courses. And back then, fintech, the word didn't even exist. So the question is, if someone's coming out of college, they see the payments or fintech industry as somewhere they want to build a career, and they come to Elavon, what advice would you give them to be successful in this industry?
I think I may have two things. One specific to this industry, and two just in general. I think in this industry is really learn how the industry works. It's always, I think, a gap. People don't fully comprehend how the ecosystem works. Who are the different players? How do the financials work? I think it's critical to understand that. Learn that basics as you grow up. It's easy to kind of, whether you're a salesperson, you're passionate about sales or product or just a technology, but understanding the kind of how the core principles of how money moves and the how we make money and things like that. I think sometimes people miss that coming into this, and I think learning that. Obviously, coming a finance guy, I'm a little biased. Think it's really important to understand. But I think it's interesting to understand that. It makes it even more. It gets you more hooked on the industry and learning that. So that'd be one for that, specific to fintech. But this in general, I think it's always being curious as far as helping with what's that next job you want to do, what's that next project you can get involved in early on in your career. Really important to successfully kind of, especially as you want to move up in the same organization. I think that's how I've been successful in my career, is just taking on those additional opportunities. Even though you might not be quite ready for them yet, taking that leap and asking for help as you go along.
Yeah, just a follow-on to that. And you mentioned, taking on more projects and reaching for that next project or that next position. How important do you think are like mentors in that process?
I think they're critical. I mean, I was very fortunate. I mean, I shared the story of, when I first started and managing someone, I lost a lot of my employees. And I remember the person who hired me, he really kind of, the way he handled that was, it could have been handled very differently. So I know he was my boss, but he was also my mentor. He's the one who hired me, and having that guidance and kind of saying, here's how you need to adjust and things like that. And having that someone who can be very transparent with you. So it's not always going to be your boss, but having someone in your career who can be honest with you, who can give you direct feedback to say, hey, here's what you're not doing well. One thing I've experienced, I think, in my career is that feedback becomes harder to get. The higher up you, so to speak, make it in an organization, people won't be as ready to give you that sort of candid feedback. So having someone in your career, whether I have mentors today, still to this day, to ensure that you're getting that real feedback is critical to grow in your career.
Well, Jamie, we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about Elavon, obviously, and the company and the future of payments, and obviously about you and your background. Is there anything else you'd like to cover before we wrap up?
No, just to reemphasize, I'm really proud of the U.S. Bank and Elavon and what we've created here. I think you asked me a question, what differentiates. Again, it's not overly complicated, but it's just the distribution we've created, the industry-specific solutions, and just being part of U.S. Bank, just I think creates a unique advantage in the market. And Greg, I really appreciate the time.
Absolutely. So, Jamie, thank you so much for being on the show today. I know your time is very valuable, so I really appreciate you being here.
Sure. Thanks, Greg. Have a good day.
You too. And to all you listeners out there, I thank you for your time as well. And until the next story.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Leaders in Payments podcast. Make sure you visit our website at leadersinpayments.com, where you can subscribe to the show and where you'll find our show notes. If you enjoyed listening, please share on your social channels as well.